What's she doing? Smelling. Okay, well, what we're going to do now here, we're going to go through a talk on how we can utilize using herbs for our health. But what we're doing, I want you to understand, please be careful. I often have people coming to me and they say to me, oh, can I use this herb if I'm on some medication? Believe me, if you are helping someone who is on medication, you need to find out first whether you can use herbs. It's up to you. Don't come to me and say, oh, can I use this herb with such and such a medication? Look, all medications have a side effect and you need to be aware of that. But also women who are pregnant, considering becoming pregnant or breastfeeding, you need to be careful. Herbs are very powerful. Plus, you need to know what you're using. Don't guess. I actually had somebody told me that they used what they thought was cat's claw and it was cat's ear. And there's quite a difference, okay? One can make you quite sick. Okay, so be aware. Now, I want you to see something and I want you to understand that what we're talking about, not just using culinary herbs, I'm talking about using wild crafted herbs. Now, when I'm talking about wild crafted herbs, they may be growing in your yard or your back garden, which I'm going to share with you what I've got in my backyard. But you do not have to. You can go out into the wild and you can use wild crafted herbs, which is growing by in the wild. Now, can I tell you, if you are going to dry those and you're going to utilize them or even use them fresh, they are far more potent than if you would go and you would order organic herbs from some herb place. A wild crafted herb is your top herb. So if you're going to go out foraging for herbs, that is, especially if you find a really good source to find them, that is absolutely the best way you can eat your herbs. Obviously, you got to watch for animals, and especially you got to watch for dogs and animals. You got to be watch for them because you don't want to be using herbs that have been used by animals, who are walking over them and that sort of thing. So just be aware of that, but bearing in mind that most of your wild crafted herbs that you find in the bush, are really, really healthy, and they've got really rich source of your minerals and vitamins and minerals in. They are also very rich in chlorophyll. You look at what chlorophyll does for you. And what is chlorophyll? It's the green colour of the herbs. What is a phytochemical? Well, they're all the chemicals that you find in your food, in your plants. They protect against bacteria, viruses and fungi. They can also protect humans against diseases. There are thousands of known phytochemicals. For example, lycopene in tomatoes, isoflavones in soy, flavonoids in fruit. There are loads and loads of different phytochemicals. They all serve a different purpose. Use your plant whole. Every plant has in it something toxic if separated or isolated. For example, chlorophyll. If you injected 80 milligrams of chlorophyll, you will kill mice if injected into mice. Yet chlorophyll is not harmful. But if you inject it, you don't have that much. So you can't extract chlorophyll like that. 300 to 400 microflora out of the intestines all have a job to do. Each deals with specific chemicals found in the plant. Take these chemicals separately and they could kill us. Okay, if you have an orange, and if you have a whole orange, it's healthy. But if you extracted every single orange seed out of that plant, and then collected all these orange seed and ate a bucket of orange seeds, do you think they would cause you harm? I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm just using that as an illustration that you can, that we're not meant to eat concentrated food like that. But use herbs synergistically. They work better in combination. Now, have you heard of doctrines of signature? Okay, now this teaches us, this is from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Herbalists believed that God taught mankind what herbs could be used for, because the sign that God placed into every plant said each part of the plant, whether it's the leaves, petals, flower, or berries, or nuts, resemble various parts of the body and can be used to treat ailments of that part of the body. Okay, and we know that leaves were used for the healing of mankind. A sliced carrot looks like a human eye. Now, what's a carrot good for? Eye. Grapes hang in clusters that have the shape of the heart and like a blood cell. What's grapes used for? Blood. A walnut looks like a little brain. What is a walnut good for? Brain food. Kidney beans actually heal and help maintain the kidney function. Celery, bok choy, rhubarb, and many more look just like bones. Avocados, eggplant, and pears target the health and function of the womb and cervix of the female. Figs are full of seeds. They increase the mobility of male sperm and increase the numbers of sperm, as well as to overcome male sterility. Sweet potatoes look like the pancreas and actually balance the glycemic index of diabetics. Oranges, grapefruits, and other citrus fruits just look like the mammary glands of the female and actually assist the health of the breasts and movement of lymph in and out of the breasts. Olives assist in the health and function of the ovaries. Onions look like the body's cells. They help clear waste materials from all parts of the body's cells. They even produce tears which wash the epithelial layers of the eyes. A working companion, garlic, also helps eliminate waste. A tomato has 4 chambers and is red. The heart has 4 chambers and is red. Tomatoes are loaded with lycopene and are indeed pure heart and blood food. So you can see how this doctrine of signatures is placed in it. That's just a bit of your information. But I wanted to share with you the fact that wild food surrounds us. And many years ago, I watched some videos about this man who believes that you can live, and he's suburban America, and he said in 1 mile radius of his house, he could live and exist on the food that he could forage and he could find on the nature strip, in his garden, in weeds, and just anywhere. Because most of the people have no idea that the grass they're walking on underground is food. The tree leaves are food. The berries are food. But of course, I said to you, you have to know what you're eating. Don't just assume you know what it is. But wild food surrounds us. It's growing everywhere. It's growing in our streets and nature strips, beside the roads, in our parks. But we need to choose plants not exposed to car fumes or animals. Now, how can we take these herbs? You can use herbal teas and infusions, which you're using dried herbs. You can use decoctions, where that is you boil and you simmer your herb. You can swallow it as pills or powders. You could put them in capsules. You can use fresh leaves. Now, if you're going to use a fresh leaf, what I would do is I'd maybe get 2 teaspoons of fresh crushed herbs per cup, pour boiling water over freshly, finely cut leaves, and you just leave it. And you can drink it. Let it brew and you can drink it. Or you can use them in leaves, in smoothies or salads. You make herbal oils using dry leaves. The base for oil and ointments and creams. You can use as tincture, which you put in alcohol, apple cider vinegar or glycerine, and you can add them to foot bath. You know, I was just thinking as I was saying that, I can remember one of our classes like this. We actually went out into the wild and and Bernice and Marilyn were there. We did this the same. We got dandelion and purslane and all these weeds. We diced them up very nice and we made a salad, and we gave everybody a salad of these wild edible greens. And most people who come from countries where this is in their culture have no problem with that. Do you know that, Jimena? Yeah, you do that sort of stuff. So, you know, a lot of Europeans, my mother-in-law used to do this. They would just know this is quite normal because she was from Germany. So people can do that. But I found the secret is you put a good salad dressing over it. That anyone will eat it with. You have a good salad dressing. We actually have a recipe for wild. Wasn't nettle, it was dandelion, a dandelion salad. You put dandelion in it, and then you put boiled potatoes, and then you put in it garlic, loads of garlic, and salt and olive oil. Oh, is that nice? And we have the potatoes hot in there, and you sort of stir it through. Oh, that is beautiful. So you can do all these sort of things too. Have your herbs any way you want to take it. And don't be frightened to start using wild herbs in your salads. But as I said, when you first start it, go slowly because it can be quite a lot of taste, and especially if you're introducing them to your family. But you need to hide them with a really good dressing. That's the secret. Okay, now the first one I'm going to talk about is alfalfa, which is called, or some people call it lucerne. Okay, it's rich in minerals, alleviates anemia, strengthens the blood, helps digestion. But did you know that they say that the taproot goes down 12 to 100 meters? So what we're thinking of when you've got roots, and this is the principle of all these plants I'm talking about, especially when they're growing wild, in the wild, literal wild, they're in the ground in your garden and they're not in pots, they're in your garden. How deep is a perennial go? How deep does the root system? Now, if you grow your vegetables, your root system is lucky to get that deep. But if you've got a perennial that you're growing down, it's there, guess how deep does it go? Well, obviously it's different with each plant, but there are many different variations of roots depths in the plant kingdom. And so if you've got a plant that's taproot is going down 100 meters in the ground, that's bringing up trace minerals from right deep down in the soil, and that's bringing it up and it's holding it in his leaves. So if we have some of those leaves, you don't need heaps of them, but you have some of those leaves, you're getting trace minerals you would get from nowhere else. Because most of the soil up on the surface is pretty depleted. So we've got to go down deeper. So alfalfa, I'm not going to read all the words here because it takes too long, but you can see it counteracts excess acidity. Now there's another one which some of you may have seen. I had hawthorn berry here, which I've packed up. If you still wanted some, I have got it down in the back room. At the back of the room. Hawthorn berry is one of the best herbs that you can possibly have for heart health. Now this is a picture of hawthorn berry. Now my husband taught me all of this. He taught me all about herbs right at the very beginning. He was very confident. His grandmother was a sort of an amateur herbalist, but she knew so much, and she passed it on to him. This is we've got hawthorn berries growing just around the corner in somebody's nature strip over the road. This is a picture I took. Some people use the leaves, some people use the flowers, some people use the berries. Normally, the berry is what we've got in powder form, but if you don't have sometimes the powder goes out of stock, but you can actually use the leaves, which are just as good. It's one of the safest herbs. There are no side effects. You can use your berries, your bark, your flowers, or your leaves. And it treats cardiovascular diseases. It alleviates angina, prevents and treats arrhythmia. And look, you go on there. But its primary thing is heart health. So anybody you know who's got problems with their heart, hawthorn berry is a must. It will actually rebuild their heart. There was a story in one of the books when I was doing my herbal course. He said that this fella was supposed to go into a hospital and have a heart transplant. And before he went in, they decided somebody got him on some hawthorn berry and some more nutrition. And he went in to get ready to go into the do the heart transplant, and they said, you don't need one. You won't need one. Your heart's fine. So it can take 1 to 2 months before effects can be noticed, but it can be safely used for long periods of time without any risk or side effects, and it's not accumulative. The only drug you got problems with if you were taking digitalis. Everything else is pretty right. Okay, next we've got red clover. Now this purifies your blood. This is an excellent herb for your blood. This is one that when that lady was being treated for her leg ulcer, this was the herb of choice that we used to cleanse the blood. People's blood's too toxic. So it cleanses all things. You can see that. I'm not going to read all of these things out because they are just so detailed here, but you can see that it's very good. It cleanses your skin. So it's a blood cleansing herb. St. John's wort is a herb that grows around here. It's in the wild here and at certain times of the year. So we've got it everywhere. Now farmers hate it because it's a real weed, but herbalists love it because it's so good. Okay, but you use this one for depression and ADHD. This is a nervous system, helps nervous system. Helps some cancers, inflammation, viruses, and fibromyalgia. But don't use when on depression medication. Contraceptive pill, warfarin, pregnancy may cause photosensitivity. So there's a few cautions with some of these. Chamomile. Now, I don't know about you, not many people grow chamomile in the wild here. That's more European. I don't know where else it is, but I know it's European. But it reduces menstrual pain, alleviates blood sugar, and so on. Here's another one, sage. This is a wonderful tonic. It says produces adrenal hormones, prevents abnormal blood clotting. And you can see there, and there's more here on this page, reduces fevers, reduces blood sugar in diabetics, alleviates fatigue, stimulates regrowth of liver, works on kidneys and spleen, reduces excessive mucus and discharges. And it's really interesting because there's a herbalist in America called Dr. Richard Schultz. He's quite a famous herbalist, and he said that his herb of choice, if he had nothing else, would be garlic. It helps heart health. Look at everything else it helps. Rids body of parasites, cholesterol, cancers, immune system, asthma, and it goes on. You can use it anyway. You can eat it. You can soak it in olive oil. It can be rubbed on your skin. Now, I spoke to you the other day about corn silks. Any time you find a corn, pull the silk off. Take it and dry it because that treats urinary tract infections. Plus anything like reduces blood sugar, reduces gout, kidney problems. Okay, now I'm going to keep walking and I'm going to just take you through our garden using just the green plants that we have had in our garden. We don't have them there all the time because some are seasonal, but I took these photos and I've just left them in there just so you can see what I would do, how I'm going to get my edible greens practically out of my backyard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through my garden. I've got a bowl in my hand, and I'm just going to pick a few leaves here and there of this. I'm not going to do heaps, just a few leaves. And so I'm going to collect, and I'm going to use wild, edible, green weeds and plants, and we call them God's pharmacy. Okay, so this is the first thing I would do. Do you know what this is? Violets. Okay, violet leaves, flowers and roots are edible. You can see what they're good for. Headaches, digestive orders, respiratory. Okay, so I'm going to pick a few leaves of violet leaves. Plus I might pick a few of the violet flowers because they're edible as well. And by the way too, I've got a good herb book at home that has all of these in it. I can tell whether they're edible or not edible. So it's good to have a herb book so you can see what's good and what's not. And I realise violet flowers are edible. Well, that's fine. Plus we can go on a little bit further. What are these? Strawberries. Did you know that the strawberry leaves are the best blood cleansers around? They're tonic the kidneys, liver, spleen, bladder, blood, as well as the infections. They are so good for cleansing your blood. Then we go on a little bit further. Mint. And there's lots of different varieties of mint. This is just mint that's come up that I haven't planted it. The birds have dropped it in and it just comes up everywhere. And mint you can use for lots of different things. As I said, there's lots of different ones. Now, this one is my neighbour's tree. Okay, I'm going to use this not just for the fig fruit. I'm actually going to take off and use a fig leaf. And when I'm going to use them, I'm going to use a small leaf because it's more tender. But fig leaves are best known for treating diabetes. The diabetic will need less insulin when on a treatment using the fig leaf. So it's great for diabetics. A little bit further on, and I don't have this in my yard anymore, it's gone, the tree is dead. But I wanted to show it to you. Peach leaves. Peach leaves are good for nerves, are a laxative, and this is an excellent remedy for whooping cough or any cough. So what I would do, and which I still have, I have collected peach leaves and I've got them dried and I've stored them in my jars. And guess what? If anybody has any cough, I just go and get my peach leaf, have a peach leaf. And one of our friends, Beryl, she comes to a lot of our classes here and she was hoping to get here this week, but it's just been too hard because she lives out of town. And she just brought up her kids. She had, 10 kids? And she brought all these kids up, plus I think she had 14 foster children. She's brought them all up on using herbs. And anytime they would have a cough, guess what? She gives them some peach leaf tea. Now this one might be tricky for you, but it's called yarrow. And I bought it especially because it breaks fevers by inducing perspiration. And I thought I would use this when I'm doing a fever bath when I'm treating people. And it does work, but that's what you do. You can add that to your herbal teas. It eases heavy menstrual bleeding and cramps. And this one here is fennel, okay? It lowers blood pressure. The seeds can be used as well, and chew your seeds to depress hunger pangs. Don't know if we'll ever need that. This one's interesting. It's coming up all over my garden because I originally bought a plant and it's called salad burnet. Stops bleeding internally, strengthens the heart, liver, lungs, kidneys and nervous system, purifies blood. And originally when I started a lot of these off, I actually bought the plant from a nursery or, at a market or somewhere where I found these. And that's where I originally got the plant. And so I planted them, and I know this is a salad burnet because if I would see this coming up in my yard, I really wouldn't have much idea what it was. But I know it now, and I know where it is, and it comes up nicely everywhere. A lot of these are self-seed. Parsley, high chlorophyll content, Okay, very good for kidneys, stones, helps gum and mouth, and any urinary tract infection, used for those problems. Yes, this is humble kale, helps fight diabetes, antioxidant, supports heart health. Yeah, great. Yes, carrot tops. Did you know it says that it has many more times vitamin A than the root and has 6 times the vitamin C of the root? But can I tell you, it says they can be a little bitter, so use them sparingly. I normally always have a garden of carrots, and I've still got some in my garden at home. Okay? And I always have them, and so when it comes to this time of the year, I get a bit excited and I think, oh, I'll use them. I don't anymore, I should say, but I did. And I'd use these carrots in my green drinks. And if I use them, I know now to go sparingly. I tell you, use carrots, they taste shocking. Carrot tops, and they taint your whole flavour of your green drink. So when you use them, even though they're very nutritious, you've got to actually be sparse with them, I should say, and don't use too many because they make the whole thing taste absolutely shocking. But they're so healthy for you. And if you want to just use pure carrot juice, it will give you diarrhea. I've tried it. It's very, very, very strong. Okay, here's some more. Beetroot leaves. They are excellent too. Silver beet. Now, silver beet when you're using it raw is different from silver beet when you cook. When you cook it, gives you oxalic acid, but raw it's fine. You're not going to get any of the same problems if you've got oxalic acid. Know this one? Soursop, yes, you're right, or it's actually called oxalis, okay, but it's soursop, yes. It has a lemony citrus flavour and it's chewed for nausea, mouth sores. You can use your tea for urinary infections, but it also has oxalic acid, but you're going to use it raw, so it's got no problems with it. Now here I'm going to use this. This is a proper calendula flower. This is Calendula officinalis. This is the proper calendula that you can use for any calendula petals you're using for tea and all that. And I actually used to use dry off all the heads and pick up when I'm drying them, unless you're drying them properly, that calyx can actually be quite hard to get quite dry. And if you don't dry it properly, it can contaminate the whole lot if you're drying them because you've still got a bit of moisture in the calyx because it's so heavy and big compared to the leaves dry off very quickly. And you think, oh, that's dry, but it's not. Inside of that, it's still quite wet. So it's easier sometimes just to pull off the petals and leave the calyx behind if you want it in a hurry. But you can use that. It's excellent for any healing, it cleanses your blood too. You can use it, but it's very soothing. It's a very good to make into an oil, and that heals. It's a very good healing ointment. You can use topically. You can use it for anything, for psoriasis, for radiation therapy, for shingles. You can use all of these for any of these things. Calendula, but it says don't overconsume. If liver is sluggish, it may stimulate bile too quickly and will cause biliousness. Wounds may heal too quickly over stitches. Okay, do you know what this one is? Yes, you know, purslane. Now, this comes up in most people's garden in the summer. It's a summer weed. It's not up now. It has a waxy leaf with a brown stem and a lemony flavour. It is the richest source of omega-3 in the plant kingdom. Contains vitamin C, increases milk supply in nursing mothers, and it's good for so many things. Now, this one we introduced into our garden. It's coming up everywhere. And it's called mullein. How big is it? Mullein grows about this tall, and it has a centre stalk coming up the middle of it with flowers off the stalk. I think I explained it to you the other day. And you take those flowers off, and those flowers you can dry and use for hearing problems, for ears. Okay? But this is poor man's toilet paper, because those leaves on the bottom are huge. They're big. Okay? So the leaves down the bottom are huge, and they get smaller as they get up to the top. So not all of them, unless you're giving them the right condition, they don't all grow that tall. But it is really quite something. Soft velvety leaves. It's the only herb known that has narcotic properties without being poisonous and harmful. It strengthens bowels and glandular system. So what I've done is, when they're in harvest and when they're in season, I'll go and pick them, and I've got a food dehydrator, and I actually dry them off. I much prefer drying my herbs in a dehydrator, but you can dry them off on whether you do have them, put them on your spare bed or something like that, or on a tray or somewhere. But quite frankly, I find them taking too long. It's so much easier to harvest them all, dry them all off, and they're dried off in maybe 6 or 8 hours or whatever, and they're finished, and then you can pack them up and put them away. But if you just lay them out, they're laying out for like 2 or 3 weeks, and they just, to me, it's a pain. I just want them finished. Okay, this one's just a herb which I bought, was marjoram. And so you can see what that's used for. Now this one might trick you, but it's called cleavers. Okay, it is known as goosegrass, sticky weed. Okay, it's the weed in your garden that as you walk along, it comes out all in it. You know, you catch it on your trousers, you're walking through, it sticks to you. Well, guess what? This is one of the best tonics to help drain out the lymphatic system. It stimulates the activity of your lymphatic system and organs so that they can do their job properly. Helps to cleanse and nourish the blood. So you use it for psoriasis, for rashes, for arthritis, for urinary stones and infections. This is marshmallow. Okay, so this is often in these herbal preparations for cough medicine, because it's very good for your respiratory tract, your urinary tract, and used for sore throats, coughs, colds, laryngitis, all that upper chest stuff. Marshmallows. We used to have heaps of them when I grew up on my farm years ago. Yes, by the way, too, this is all, I'm actually talking about a lot of these herbs. I'm picking them and I'm drinking them as teas, or I said earlier you could make them into a smoothie or something like that. But any of these you can actually use as a poultice. I can remember reading a story about a man, and I think it was on one of the, I was doing my herbal course, and one of the courses, one man, he had gangrene in his leg, and they sat him in a bath of marshmallow, and he got the feeling back into his legs. Okay, so what we can see that you can actually make, you can make poultices, or you can put these heaps of, if you're on a farm and you've got bucket loads of these sort of things, which often you do when you're on a farm, and especially if you've had chooks, they're everywhere. Marshmallows, in the spring they'll grow up everywhere. And so you have heaps of them, and so you could put them and dry them off. You can dry them off for tea, but you can also use them as poultices. Excellent as poultices. All of them, the whole lot of them.
Can I just share, I had an uncle visit.
Just hold on.
I had a relative visiting one day, and he had grown up in a simple home, and he shared with me that they used to eat the little seed heads off the marshmallow.
There you go. For food, for nourishment, yeah. Remember, all of these are foods. I'm talking about all of these. They're not just, they're a medicine, but you can actually use them as food. Now this here is a dandelion. Now what I've done on the left-hand side, I've shown you a dandelion. On the right-hand side, I've shown you when I've cut that stalk. Now a dandelion has a rosette at the bottom. You have one stalk and a flower on the top. Now each stalk, if you cut that stalk in half, you will see it's hollow. It's hollowed out. It looks like a drinking straw. You can see that. Yet on the next slide here, that's the wrong way around. On the next side here, I've got a slide. On the left-hand side is capeweed. Now, when I was a child, we were always taught capeweed was dandelion. Okay, so people are not sure. You know, that culture is whatever you were taught. Now, in the top right-hand, that's cat's ear. Cat's ear. Down the bottom right-hand, that is cat's ear as a smaller plant. But when it comes up as a little baby plant, they look very identical. Very hard to tell the difference. They get quite different as they get older, as they're more mature. But if you can see that cat's ear has one stalk, then it has branches going up off that stalk, and it has a number of... So can you see it's quite different than the one stalk, one flower. One stalk, one flower. But this other one doesn't. So you can easily see that it's not a dandelion. So what do you use dandelion for? It appears often after your winter. It is very bitter. You use your leaves, your roots, your stems, which are hollow. They're full of nutritive salts which purify the blood and destroy acid in the blood. They're good for anemia. They improve circulation. They're great liver tonic. They stimulate bowel flow. They alleviate colitis, the constipation, helps kidney function, scanty urine, bedwetting. It's a safe plant diuretic that alkalizes the body, reduces excess acidity. Bitter stimulates digestion. So when you're doing, you remember you've heard of Swedish bitters? Now, Swedish bitters is another form of dandelion. It's not really just dandelion in there, but you can get that bitter taste. Well, here you're getting a bitter taste. Relieves diabetes, dissolves gallstones. Now, you can have dandelion as dandelion tea, or you could use it as, it says, used as a poultice is a traditional treatment for breast cancers. The sap alleviates warts. Somebody wanted to know about warts. There you are. Any of the saps will help warts too. But you can also use dandelion root coffee. You can get that from the supermarket. That's really good too. So don't be frightened of doing that. I once had a lady, she came around and she told me she cured her chronic fatigue by just using dandelions that she was getting out of her own garden. And she was just using them. And she was actually using the whole plant, the root and all. And she was eating all of that whole plant and she was getting it down. So I can't remember what she did with the root, but she got it down, and she said that I've got no more chronic fatigue. Stinging nettles. Now, how do you eat stinging nettles? Stinging nettles is so good for you because they are so rich in iron. Especially for women who are iron deficient, this is the highest source of iron that you can get. Okay? Now, how do you eat stinging nettles? Well, my mother-in-law grew up she was a German, and after the war, she said there was no food. And she said many, many people stayed alive by eating stinging nettles. How do you eat stinging nettles? Because I tell you what, they sting. Okay, so what you do, you pick them with a glove, you're right. But what I do, I'd go out and pick them, I will put them on a breadboard, I'd run a rolling pin over the top of them, and all of the stingers are gone. And then you just slice it up and put it in whether you want to. Usually, if you were going to cook it, you would cook it, because sometimes some people have stinging nettles. Some people have stinging nettle soup. You heard of that one? But you can have stinging nettles in your salad. But I can assure you, I don't want to eat stinging nettles unless you've got them rolling pin rolled out and those little stingers just sort of obliterated. But it's a very rich source of iron in the plant kingdom and chlorophyll. Plantain. You can have a wide leaf or a thin leaf plantain. Now these are the seed heads on it, and I've pulled those seed heads because they just come off, and the seed heads, I pull them off the stalk and I save them in a jar, and that is psyllium. That's from the same family of psyllium. So what do you use plantain for? Well, you can use it for blood cleansing, for all bleeding, anti-inflammatory, used for arthritis. You could look at them all, those things there. Now, I had one of my books says Help for the Burns and Wounded, and this man in America, he was Amish farmer, and his son was scalded extremely bad, had third-degree burns, and he was fearful of sending this little boy, this tiny little boy, to the hospital because he knows what means when you've got somebody who has got burns to that degree, sending them into the hospital. So what he decided, he went out into the wild and he prayed and he said, Lord, what should I use? And the thought came to him, use some plants. And one of the plant was a burdock leaf he used, and the other plant was plantain. So what he did is he picked up the plantain, the leaves of the plantain, and eventually he did the few things, and he would have bruised them and he actually scalded them, but you don't need to do that. At first he did that. And then he put them on the burns, and immediately the pain went out of the boy. He immediately calmed down. It just takes the pain out. So and then he learned later it was the chlorophyll, because he tried many things. He tried grape leaves. He tried even alfalfa sprouts. If he didn't have anything, if he was in town and you've got nothing, get some alfalfa sprouts. And he just used them I would just put the rolling pin over them to bruise them, and so then you just put them over the burn, and they didn't need to be like cleaned or anything like that. As far as they didn't cause any inflammation or any infection. They just popped them on, and the leaves healed those wounds extremely quickly. Very quickly. So that's plantain. It's a blood cleanser. You can use as a poultice for burns. Okay? Now this one here is yellow dock. Now as a tonic, dock is very high in iron. We were told that it's the richest source of iron in the plant kingdom. Now when I was doing my course, I got Peter to go out with me, and we went out and we dug this yellow dock plant up because I wanted a yellow dock root. And we dug it up, and it was huge. The root was about this deep down, and it was shaped like a huge taproot, like a huge carrot. And we got it home, and I thought, now what am I going to do with this? So I got him to he's got a little axe there, a little tomahawk axe. So I got him to chop it all up, and I dried it out. So it was dried out because I thought, well, what's the point? I've gone out and got this. But you needed to cut it in little bits because it's too big, because it wouldn't dry as one long root. So I had it there, and then sometimes later I actually got myself into a situation where I was very, very low in iron. And I needed to go. I went to the hospital, and I had a curette was the day before Easter. It was a Thursday. I went in. I had a curette, and the doctor said to me, he said, I'm borderline transfusion. I'll give you till Tuesday when you come back to see me after the Easter break. He said, if your blood's not up, I'll give you a transfusion then. So I went in over this weekend, this Easter weekend. I had 4 days to bring my blood level up. Well, what I decided to do, I'll use all of that yellow dock root. So I put it in a saucepan, and Peter did most of this because I was pretty sort of weak. I didn't have too much energy to do anything. And so we boiled it up. It was a big pot like that, and we covered it with water, and we boiled it up. And honestly, it was almost black. It was such a dark colour. Anyhow, I determined I'm going to drink all of this, that whole lot. I was going to drink the lot of it. And I did. I drank a whole bottle, not all at once, but I bought a bottle of liquid chlorophyll, which you can get from the health food shop, because I knew that when women who are bleeding after they have childbirth, if they're heavily bleeding, get them to sip that chlorophyll out of a full bottle of chlorophyll. Just get them to sip little mouthfuls of it, and you could put it in water if you wanted to, but sip that through a day or 2 days. They need green. We need green, 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 green. And even now today, we still need green. So I got this full bottle. Peter went to the health food shop, got a bottle of chlorophyll. I also got that stage, and I don't know if you can still buy it, but it was pure Lloyd's grape juice, which was very nourishing, and pure grape juice rebuilds the blood up. So I had all these things there. I was taking them over the weekend, and I went back, and I've forgotten what my reading was, but I know my iron levels went extremely high. And I went into the doctor, and he said, he says, "My, your iron level's high. What have you been doing?" And I said to him, "I've just been taking chlorophyll." And he looked at me, and I thought to myself, he looked at me as if he was saying, "I don't know what you're saying here, but if I say anything, it might show my ignorance." That's what I thought. That's how I felt he was reacting to what I was saying. So I just let it go, and he let it go. But obviously I could not believe it. And when he said that, he said, "It's amazing how much, only one weekend, how high those levels of iron can come over one weekend." Because I really worked on it. As I said, I can't even remember what that tea tasted like, but I tell you what, I was determined to drink it. Most of the times they all taste horrible, but my philosophy is it's good. If it's good, once it's past your palate there and your taste, and it's down in your stomach and it's doing what it should do. It's only that it's terrible as it passes through this part here in your taste buds. So yellow dock tea, it is excellent. And I use a few leaves. Normally I use the root if I was using something like that, but I picked some leaves. As I'm going through the garden, remember I'm picking a couple of these leaves. Then this one here, Peter introduced to, he brought the plant back. And what is it? It is sorrel, sheep sorrel. It cleanses your blood, expels worms, warming to the heart, rich in vitamin C. So it's a very good. And this actually is an ingredient in Essiac tea too. So it's a very good anti-cancer herb. And then I have got loads and loads of this. I've got a heap in my garden. It's just dying off now. It's almost dead. Comfrey. Assists the body to heal any part that has been torn or broken. And I talked to you the other day about comfrey and how it can heal broken bones. Then we go on a bit further, and I've got this there. I have loads of this there. Now, this is aloe vera. This is a candelabra aloe vera, which has got one centre stalk, and then it's got leaves coming up, going up like that. There is another one called barbadensis, that comes from the rosette down the bottom, and all the leaves come up from the bottom. I believe this one is better because the leaves are fatter and plumper. There is another variation of aloe vera called perii, which is not very high on. That's the little ones that in some gardens. That's not very strong medicinally. You really need to get the barbadensis or the candelabra. But it helps loads of things. It helps digestion, acid reflux, irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, stops bleeding. It is so good for you to get into anything with the aloe vera plant. It alleviates allergies. We actually do. Peter he used to take it a lot more than I did. You'd go out, and as I said, I've got so much of it there. He used to say, can't we get rid of some of this? And you'd cut off a stem and you stand the stem up in a glass, and that yellow bitter part runs out in the glass. And then I just cut it up, I'd wash it, and then I'd cut it all up and just put that cut aloe vera in a jug of water and just drink that. And it tastes a bit bitter and tastes a bit icky, but just drink it. It's good for you. I don't profess any of these are nice for your palate. Just remember, it's all good for you. Look, sometimes I put things, and if I'm doing classes and I'm doing many times we've done herb classes and we brought them all along, and what I do is I put them in juice for the herb class, because most people say, oh, that's quite nice. You put them in pineapple juice or apple juice, most people can handle it. But you put it in water, it's But you know what, I figured it doesn't matter what it tastes like. Once it's past the palate, it's down there and it's doing good. Okay, this one is the next one. And we introduced one of this to our garden, and honestly, it's coming up everywhere. It comes up in cracks in the cement. It comes up, you cannot believe everywhere it's coming up. And it's called Herb Robert. And it's called the Supreme Therapeutic Herb. It makes oxygen available to cells. It's excellent for cancer, stimulates kidneys to reject and eliminate toxins. And Herb Robert is one of the master herbs. This is in a book, Isabel Shippard's book about Herb Robert. She has got so much to say on how good Herb Robert is. This one here. Now, when you see that, you may not realise what it is, but it's called chickweed. Chickweed the whole plant is edible. It's a decongestant, very good for lungs, sinus, bronchitis, removes plaque from arteries, builds herbs, tissues, regulates thyroid. And so what you do is, if you pinch this chickweed stem, you pinch it with your fingernail and you don't push it too hard, but you'll see what's left is a little thread. And that little thread tells you that this is chickweed, because chickweed can look like some of the chickweed, and this one here, called radium weed, when it first comes up, looks identical when it's little. As it comes up a bit bigger, you'll see that radium weed has a brown stem, and if you on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see I've got another picture there. I've cut a little bit of the stem off, I've pinched it, and you'll see a milky sap coming out of that. This is the one that you don't eat. This is the one that you use to burn off your skin cancers. Now, as I've walked through the garden, I've picked a lot of these herbs, and I've got them in a bowl here, bits and pieces. Now, I look at them and I say, that looks clean, that looks clean. I'm getting them all out of my garden. I purposely don't wash them. Unless, obviously, it was dirty. I will wash them if it was dirty. Now, why don't I wash them? Well, I have a belief that there is a lot of good bacteria on the outside of these plants why would I wash them off? Because I'm going to wash them off. I've just got water that's town water. I mean, my water is purified, but, we are so sanitised in our country. Everything has to be washed and washed and washed and washed, and with the sanitizers, hand wash everything. We're so sanitised, we've lost our resilience because we don't have that right flora in our digestive tract to fight off a lot of the bugs, because we've killed them all off through sanitising them. So I purposely leave them on there, and not only that, vitamin B12 is on the outside of your plants, and it's not there if you wash them off. And animals get it because they don't wash the plants off. But why should we always wash the plants off? And then what I do is I get a bit of whatever. Sometimes I've got a bit of frozen fruit that I've got out in the freezer. And I'm just making one little drink. I don't want to make a heap of it. Just make a small drink. And I put my leaves in the blender. I put a little bit of water in there and I blend them up. This is quite a powerful blender, so I've got 1 glass of water. This one is a smoothie. I'll drink it as a smoothie, or you use more water for blending and strain it and then drink as green liquid. If I'm doing that one, second one, I don't put the fruit in. The fruit's there just to give it a little bit of a lift of a taste. But if I don't want the taste, many, many times I just go out and I pick my leaves, I throw them in a little bit of water, blend them, strain them, and just drink the green water. Now that's just pure minerals, vitamins in green water. And it's cheap, it costs you nothing virtually. So you don't have to go and buy all these lotions and potions. I've actually got a juice press that will actually press out greens, like a juice press does. It presses greens out, and the liquid, you can get pure liquid chlorophyll, and it's not that much work. But can I tell you what? This is even much easier than that. Heaps easier. I would do this any time compared to the other one. So much quicker. This is the juice press. I've got one of these. You can press out greens, or you can press out juice. I tell you what, it's excellent for pomegranates. Makes superb pomegranate juice. But if you've got pomegranates, which I have somebody who I know has a tree, and often nearly always get a big bag of pomegranates every year. So I use that. That's excellent for that. Okay, now this is an old herb doctor's special herbal mix. Collect any 25 non-poisonous plants, herbs, leaves, flowers, seeds, barks and roots. Properly dry them and then grind them to a uniform size. Mix together and store in a covered glass jar. Boil 1 litre of water, add 4 teaspoons of dried herbs, cover and let stand for 30 minutes. Strain, you add your lemon and honey if you wish. 1 litre of this herb tea will provide all the daily requirement of daily vitamins and minerals. So you're getting vitamins and minerals which you're not going to get from anywhere else. And guess what? They're free. Or you can use barley green powder. So this is another way you can get your nourishment in. And this is easier, much easier. So you just get your barley green, and which I have it normally for sale, which I think I've still got some there, haven't I, Judy? Yeah, I've got some barley green there. I sell loads of barley green. There is a lot of people buy barley green, and I sell it in kilogram lots. Mostly people will come and buy kilograms of it. And I sell it for $55 a kilogram, which is, I don't think you'd get it cheaper anywhere, but I also don't put it in those tubs, because every time you put it in a tub, you paid so much for a tub. So I just put it in a bag, and you just got to go home and put it in your own tub. But it's a powerful source of nutrition. It fills nutrition gaps. It helps control cholesterol levels, assists with managing chronic disease symptoms, beneficial for bone health, inhibits cancer, tumour growth, and fuels immunity. So there you are. There is our herb talk. So, any questions? Yes, just hold on. We've got... the front row.
Just a question regarding the hawthorn berries. In the book you've got a rounded handful of berries. What would that be equivalent for dried?
I don't know for sure. We actually went and harvested our hawthorn berries once or twice, I think. there was a whole lot out at the cemetery. There's a whole grove of hawthornberry trees, which we did there. And once we harvested them when we were coming up from Can River, we found a whole grove of hawthornberry trees. It was the first, and you don't go back and do it again because you've got to have gloves on. The hawthornberry spikes are that long. They is a very difficult thing to harvest. I don't know, Donna. You need to just see, but what you do is you dry off the berry and then just ground it. That's all you do. I've got the berries, or you simmer the berries. You don't necessarily ground them, or you just dry them off and you just throw them in and you simmer them up and make them into a tea.
I've brought some of your berry powder.
It is so much easier to use powder.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I'd say are worthwhile buying when they're because it is just so time consuming to pick all these berries, and not only that, but to pick them because there are such long thorns on the tree. It's like somebody said they're like the thorns of what they made Christ's crown, the crown around Christ's head when he was crucified. I tell you what, they are long thorns.
Yeah. So maybe for a litre, maybe a tablespoon?
Look, I would say it wouldn't really matter. Remember, it's like food. So the stronger you have it, if you can handle it stronger, use more, but just experiment. Okay. But if I just have a hawthornberry powder, I just have a mixture in my morning drink. I would have 2 teaspoons of barley green. That's just me. I have 2. First of all, I'll just tell you what I do. I put a little bit of citrus in the bottom. Now, the citrus is usually lemon, orange, or grapefruit. Now, grapefruit is very good because grapefruit is such a healthy food for you, and most people don't like eating it. This is ideal to use them up and to get them into a drink and to take them internally. Now, my sister has a grapefruit tree, so I can get lots of grapefruit for free. But if you've got a friend with a grapefruit tree, use them because it is so good for cleaning out your arteries, for all those sort of things. So you're taking this grapefruit. So I put a bit of citrus in. Look, if I was putting it in just one drink, I would put in maybe maybe 2 tablespoons of juice. Not that much, or I usually freeze them. I've got maybe 1 or 2 lemon cubes, whatever I have in there, or orange cubes, or I've got some grapefruit cubes frozen. Then I put in maybe 2 teaspoons of barley green, then I've got a teaspoon of hawthornberry, a teaspoon of maca powder, a teaspoon of turmeric, and sometimes we have licorice root. I do different herbs at different times, not always the same. I can't take a teaspoon of cayenne. That's too much for me. I'm just not a cayenne freak. I'll have a little bit of cayenne in there, but not too much. Peter used to take a teaspoon of cayenne. He could handle it, but I can't take it. It's too powerful for me. So I just mix that up and drink it. That's one of my drink is of a morning.
And that had the hawthornberry in it?
Yeah, that has the teaspoon of hawthornberry in
So
there.
you don't need to boil
Well, you see, that's
berry?
the powder. That's the powder I'm using.
So being a powder, it doesn't need to be boiled.
No, it's already. It's just you mix it in with juice and you just drink it.
Oh,
okay, so
fantastic.
that's what it makes it so much easier to take. That's why the barley green. The person who invented the barley green was a person who just grew the barley shoots, up that high. Then they freeze dry them, and the only place in Australia that does it is near Swan Hill. And so they do it and they freeze dry them, and they're organic, and it's the only supplier. I buy it from the only supplier in Australia. So I know if you're getting Australian organic barley green, you'll get it from the same supplier because it's the only place who grows it in Australia. And so they have freeze dried, and what they did is the person who invented it, which was a Japanese man, he actually knew that he wanted something as simple and as easy for people, because if you're juicing, you juice your vegetables, your carrots, your celeries, your beetroots, your zucchinis, your cucumbers. Very, very good for you. But guess what? It's time consuming. It's quite expensive, and it takes a lot of energy to do it, and there's work involved. So he decided he wanted to drink that, like if you just went to a jar and you got out a teaspoon, like people get instant coffee out of a jar. Yeah. This is just an instant health drink. You just put a spoon in your drink and you just stir it up and drink it. If you want to drink it in water, drink it in water. I should add, I use vitamin C, because vitamin C increases the uptake of your iron in there. So your body will absorb the iron better in the presence of vitamin C. But it's just easy. Now I'll have that, then I'll have my greens during the daytime. And if by some reason I miss out on my greens because of circumstances, at least I've had them in the morning and I've had my dose of greens.
Thank you.
Just behind you.
Just wanting to confirm, it's just the juice, barley greens, turmeric and hawthorn?
What, when I'm drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, look, I just have those dried, and maca. I usually put maca in it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, back here with Stephen.
Just going back to the plantain, and you were talking about the seed head. Was that selenium, or it's like psyllium husks?
Psyllium husks.
Like psyllium husks.
Psyllium husks.
Yep.
I just pull off those dried heads, and I pull that off the stalk, and it's just like it's not actually the same thing as psyllium, but it belongs to that family of psyllium. And you can see them, and you look, and you could throw them into stews or for thickening. You can get lots of things. You see, these are the things that you can use. We've got to think outside the box. What happens if you don't have the access to a supermarket? What are you going to use? What are you going to feed your family on? You have to think outside the box. I remember going and visiting some friends, and they were lived in really rural country Victoria, right out of the way of anyone. It was a long way from anyone. And they had a friend who was recovering, and she'd just come out of hospital with an operation, and she needed iron. Obviously something to do with women's problems. She needed a high dose of iron. And she visited these people. She was with her who were teenagers at that time, 3 teenage kids. They would have been about 10, 12, 14 in those age groups. And she needed to have a fresh supply of greens every day. Now, she was in remote Victoria in a place which was probably about over an hour to any supermarket. And if she got to the supermarket, what would she find there? A bag of lettuce or something that's how many days old or whatever it is. So what was she going to use? So she actually used some plantain, which is actually in this picture on the screen. Out the back where she was staying, there was a whole great big, huge area of plantain growing. And so she went out and she picked plantain and she sliced it up finely and she put some good dressing on it. Remember, a salad dressing goes a long way. And her children all liked it. Now, we've got teenage boys who are 10 and 12 or 12 and 14 or something. I think the girl was the youngest. And they had no problem to eating that. Now, a lot of teenage boys get extremely fussy and they wouldn't go, oh, no, I won't eat that. But they were quite happy. They tasted it. Oh, yes, this is quite nice. So they lived on this greens. So she was she was going out, picking it straight away out of the garden. She was slicing it up and putting it in her salad, and she was eating it straight away. And what better nourishment is she getting? She's getting all that nourishment from that ground, and it's coming straight out. It was very rich soil it was being grown in. And yet, if you were to go to the supermarket, as I said, what nourishment would there be in an iceberg lettuce? Okay, you and I know the answer, don't we? So she's getting top quality nutrition. So you can use things like that. That's plantain. And she used the plantain for food. And you can use any, and if you have dandelion, look, I'm not saying everything is going to be used for food. I mean, I don't know if I'd like to eat fig leaves for food. I don't know. I guess I'd be pretty hungry because I tell you a little story. Peter and I was doing this herbal course and I learned that wattle, the wattle, actual blossom of the wattle tree is edible. And it was wattle season. So we went along and we pulled off the blossom and I said, well, we're going to eat this. We're going to taste it. And both of us agreed. You'd have to be pretty desperate to eat this, I can assure you. You'd have to be desperate. Okay, but if you're desperate, you'll eat it, won't you? Okay, so, yes, Janice?
Can I just share something that I do at my house? You're talking about the green lettuce. I actually can't grow lettuce very successfully, but what I grow is chicory. We had one year when my boys were at high school and they got chicory in their sandwich for school. So chicory is also a bitter herb. And it's much easier to grow than lettuce. It has quite a large taproot. So for folk that struggle growing lettuce, and particularly over winter, chicory is a great substitute. Now, there's a company called the Italian Gardener, and they sell packets of a mixed chicory. And once you've had it in your garden, it has a lovely blue flower. You'll tend to get it keep coming up, and there's a few different kinds of varieties. So chicories, I just find it a really good substitute.
That is great,
for
Janice. So how did your boys cope with their lunch at school?
Oh, as far as I know, they ate it. They never admitted they didn't. But it's, And so if you came to my place and you were having a bit of a salad, you'd have chicory in it. So endive is a similar kind of plant, but not always quite as hardy. So some people might know, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Richardo? Radicchio, yeah. That's I think that's either a chicory or a endive.
Just moringa and barley green. Are they similar or the same as in nutrients wise?
Battery switch. Grab some plantar.
Okay, that's it. Okay, so moringa comes from a tree. Barley grass is a grass. Moringa grows in the tropics only, but look, it's fine. You'll get nourishment from the moringa. I believe the moringa is excellent. They're getting a lot of success. A lot of those tropical plants, but you see, we can't grow that down here. And I know that when I was up in the Cairns, there were some people up there. They were saying, "Oh, we've got a moringa tree. Would you like a plant?" And there's not much point in taking it because it won't stand frosts, So it's not much worth having it here. So, but yet if you can get onto moringa, that's great. That's fine. But as I said, for me, barley grass is more something that grows around here. As I said, that's tropical.
When you were talking about the wattle flowers, brought to mind that down our way there's a lady and she's doing bush tucker seminars and brings in all the leaves and the berries and everything, and similar to walking through your garden.
Yes, Yes.
You can find lots of plants that are growing around wild in the bush that you can eat quite readily.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was up in Cairns, there was a group of Aboriginal boys that they went off on their motorbikes and they brought me back some little berries, and they said they were super nutritious, and they were just like little, sort of like a strawberry type of berry, but they said so nutritious. And they got it from way, way, way out there that they knew where to get it from, and they brought them back, and a handful of them back to me, and they with treasure, and they were saying, "Here you are, here's some good berries." I know you'd do that, Jessie, if you could find some.
I was just going to say about the fig leaf. You can use it a lot for cooking. It's not a typical leaf one. It's more of a kind of sweet vanilla coconutty that you can use it like instead of using cabbage to wrap things, you can use a fig leaf.
Yeah.
It's a completely different flavour, so to give it a go.
Another thing I forgot to tell you about is that you can use prickly pear. The prickly pear pads is good for diabetics. The flesh in the prickly pear pads. So you can cut the prickly pear off, you can get rid of the skin, and you can throw that flesh in. I would throw the flesh in maybe in the blender. Maybe I'd throw in an orange juice or something over that. And you just blend it all up and you drink it. That's excellent for diabetics. Your prickly pear pads. But you can use lots of these things. They're excellent for food. Excellent for treating problems. Yes?
I was just going to ask about spirulina. Is that sort of
Look, it's
okay?
similar, but that'd be fine, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've forgotten how they grow that. Isn't that in the ocean?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Pardon? Yeah. Okay, that's right. Tastes horrible. Look, I've got to admit, most of this stuff, and I tell you what, there's a psychology to it. I have done so many classes, and I have given many, many people a drink to taste. I'll give them a drink of green drink, and I'll tell them before it starts, it tastes terrible. And I said, look, I'll just bear in mind it tastes terrible, and they'll drink it, and they'll say, "Oh, that's not so bad." Okay, so there's a psychology behind it, because then they'll realise, well, it's not that bad, but I'll tell them that it's worse than it is, and then they say, "Oh, well, that's not that bad. I think I can handle that." But if you tell them it tastes beautiful, it's wonderful, and then they go, "Oh," so there has to be a bit of a psychology behind it. Anyone else? Okay, one more here. I think we'll close up soon.
Years ago, I went to a doctor in Perth, and he told me that he'd been all around all the vitamin mineral supplements, and he said barley green was the best.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy with it. I've been on, and I've got the same people buy it over and over and over again, and I get rid of so much of it. I'm getting it fresh in probably every, not even 3 months. It's really quite fresh all the time. Yeah, it's one herb that I sell so much of. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Anyone else got any more question? Okay, I think we'll leave it there, and thank you so much, and we'll just have a break. And I'll have 5 o'clock, so you've got just a bit over an hour. Okay, thank you.